Welcome back to Learning Unity with the 3D Game Kit. In our last video, we added enemies and set up their movement and behaviors. Now we're going to make our world more interactive by adding destructible boxes and health crates. These objects add strategy to gameplay, breaking obstacles, revealing secrets, and recovering health. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at how we can do that with 3D Game Kit. If we go ahead and take a look inside of our prefabs here, you're going to see that we have a folder called interactable objects. And if you go ahead and click into this, there's going to be all sorts of different interactable objects in here, and we'll get into a handful of these as we progress forward. But the one we're interested in to begin with is this destructible crate. Let's go ahead and drag this into the level here, and I'm going to place it where there's no enemies. Maybe I'll place it over by the dropship to kind of imply maybe we had some supplies fall with us. And if we take a look at this destructible objects prefab, you can see on the base level there's nothing going on. This top one's just a placement node, but you'll see that we have a destructible box and an audio. And if we take a look at the destructible box, there is a damageable script attached to it. If we expand that out, you'll see that it has a hit point parameter, so we could actually increase the amount of hit points if we wanted to make these harder to break. We have different things like hit angle, forward position, all these things that we can adjust. And then there's a series of scripts here that are going to make happen what happens on death. Now, we don't want to touch any of those, but for future references, once we understand these, maybe we could use this to create our own destructible object with our own geometry. But let's just get started with this guy. Let's hit play and take a look at how this works. So I can see my box there. If I go ahead and run over to it, we can whack it, and you can see it breaks. So it doesn't contain any items or anything like that in this scenario. There's probably ways we could do that if we look into the scripts or into these inputs even. But let's go ahead and set these up to be used differently. Let's set their max hit points to something like 3 and use them as a building block for something like a wall. So let's start by just checking that 3 hit points is a good amount. And now we can introduce this as an obstacle you have to hit, and we could utilize this to build something out inside of our level. So for example, maybe we want to hide a pathway here. We could come in here and maybe set up a scenario where there's a bunch of these destructible boxes, maybe more than one, just kind of to obstruct the path here. Maybe we'll duplicate this. I can just hit Control D and place them in a way that's fun and maybe entertaining for the player and maybe even us as the game level designer. I want to make sure they don't clip into each other though. And maybe we could even experiment with what it's like to stack them high. What kind of scenario would that create? Now, we do have this situation where we probably don't want these to be able to be jumped over, right? So we might need to add in some more geometry. I also might alter this one here because it's not exactly working. So I might just come into the wall huge here, delete that, and kind of refine things. Now, it's good we're going to talk about this because we haven't touched bases on this before. You'll see that nav mesh kind of has a hole in it. So let me come into stonework here. I'm just going to grab another pillar. It's actually stonework or structures. We're going to do structures for this. And I'll throw that in there and maybe adjust it. I'm going to turn off the gizmos so that nav mesh isn't in my way. I like how that statue is on there. It's a statue of Squidward the Great. Alright, so I'm not going to do anything fancy with that. That time I didn't mess around with it, but in this scenario here, maybe I add in some larger pillars to justify this as kind of like a path obscurity where you can't really get by here without this. And this could play into something kind of interesting because you could jump up there, but maybe, even look into collapsing a pillar across these, so that way, maybe it kind of creates this tunnel effect. So the best way to get here is through these means or something of that sort. Doesn't really look too great here. but hey, I'm coming up with it on the fly. Got to put more thought into your games than this. So something like that. Now, I want to go back to the gizmo here and talk about the nav mesh agent. Whenever you add a new geometry to your scene, you are going to have to come in here, come back into that nav mesh and just click bake again, and it will recalculate the new adjustments. And that accounts for the broken crates as well. All right, so just kind of be mindful of that you will need to do that when you're adding stuff to your scene. I also might want to get rid of these rocks. I'm going to turn off the gizmo here. Remember, these rocks don't have a proper collider. We could give them one, though. But for now, we're just going to delete them. So since those are gone now, let's go ahead and redo our nav mesh. And then we'll go ahead and check out our little obstacle we've created here and see if that gives us a cool result, something fun the player can play with, or just something weird that doesn't quite work. Oh, well, that was kind of weird. You can see the physics on those doesn't like them to be stacked. But at least we can break through those and get through to this path that we otherwise would not be able to. And we might want to make it so you can't jump over the crates either. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments there. I think right now we have it set up okay. I think the physics here didn't work out in our favor, so I'm going to just destroy that destructible box here. This one... It looks like I accidentally nested them all underneath each other, if I'm not mistaken, or they get nested underneath each other automatically. That's kind of cool. Let's go ahead and maybe move that one. Ah, that one was inside of the other one. Yeah, that would explain why it kind of exploded outward. All right, so something here so that the player can't quite get through here without destroying these, and I might just move that down and maybe even duplicate it so there's another one above it. Maybe collapse to different direction, which would be cool later for the jumping aspect of the level. Maybe we could utilize that to our favor. But just something that makes it so the player can't really jump over this necessarily. And I also want to make it so they can't use the boxes to jump over it. So I'll just kind of nest these in here, but I have to be mindful of their bounds and make sure they're not running into anything. So, you know, we're creating the secret room scenario, and just make sure they're not falling through the ground. A lot of the times with game objects, you float them slightly above the ground, and when the game level loads, they can fall into place. Sometimes it gets caught visually, but better safe than sorry in those scenarios. So let's see if our secret room's up and working now. And we see, it looks like it is. Just make sure I can't jump my way over it. So I definitely can. I'd want to adjust that in terms of gameplay. But there we go. We now have a little secret room we can access back here, utilizing those. Now, I can also adjust the jump height, which we haven't talked about too much with the character here, but you can adjust your character. So let me go ahead and quit this. If you want to change how she interacts, we can come into the character herself inside of Ellen. And inside of here, she should have some sort of a jump height script. So if you come down here to player controllers, you'll see gravity set to 20. If I go and set that to 10 and hit play, we'll see a difference in how the jump works. Now you have to figure out if more gravity or less gravity is going to make her jump higher or less high. And it looks like lower gravity just turned her into Superwoman. You can see, woo, she can fly now, which is hilarious. But let's say I want to bring her back down to reality. Maybe we make that even higher rather than making it lower. And we take that gravity and we set it to something like 40. I guess 30 is the max. So it looks like they have some parameters in here for restricting us. And you can actually adjust that on a per level basis. So this is going to be her jump now, a bit more realistic than what it was. And if we try and jump up this now, we're not going to be able to. Now that does mean we'll probably have to adjust the rest of the level to accommodate that, but it also makes it so now we have to navigate our puzzle because we can't just go up at the walls anymore. And we can come in here and double check that, you know, with some of our other gameplay elements here. Can she still make these jumps? And not quite. So those are going to be things I'll have to adjust and account for. But just kind of be mindful of that. Okay, so that's going to be destructible crates and how we can utilize those to kind of create a story element with the little gateway back there. But if we're going to create a little gateway, we should give the player some sort of a reason to go back there, some sort of reward. So if we come back under our prefabs and interactables, you will see there's this option here to create a health crate. So this is an excellent way to kind of reward players for exploring or meeting an objective. So I'm going to drag this health crate into here, and we can just bring this back here and place it behind our little secret door, and we will have our health crate. All right, so what does a health crate do? It is going to give you health. It's going to heal you. That's the whole point of a health crate. But let's take a look if it does that by default or not. All right, so let's go ahead and take some damage. I'll go ahead and fight the big guy back here. Make sure he can still run. Whoop, he still can. And we've taken some damage. So now our health crate should heal us, so we know it's hidden behind these walls. There's our health crate, and let's interact. And nothing happens. It animated, woo, but no health, okay? So it does not give us health by default, kind of like how the enemies don't move on default, so we need to add that functionality. So let's take a look at how we're going to do that. If we come into the health crate here, and we take a look at these, you can see that we have a lot going on. What we need to do is we need to go to interact on trigger, which is this one here, and we need to add a new one by adding the plus button. So whenever you're dealing with different components, they'll have different UIs, and this is actually going to be determined on who builds the script. This one has what are called public variables, so we can edit these, but we can click this plus button here to actually add our own input. So let's go ahead and add that input, because the rest already have stuff in there, right? It has an animation, this one has the collider, this one has the sounds, that's a particle. So we need to add another one for our own system here. Now on this, we can select the field inside of here, and we're going to search for Ellen. And we can click Ellen here. So add Ellen, and Ellen's our player character. We could have also dragged her in from over here. So just be aware that we could have dragged her into this box. And under function here, we can select the type of function we want to have happen. Now in this one, we can select reset damage. So if we come in here to our options under damageable, you can select this option here called reset damage, and what that will do is it will reset the damage on the character, which is the same thing as healing, right? So just remember, you can drag and drop Ellen into the box, or you can search for her with that. And remember that we're going to be looking under damageable. These are the different things inside of here, and we're going to set that to reset damage. Now you'll see there's other things we can do in here. I don't think any of those are appropriate for what we want, but you can see there's other options we can input as well, which is quite interesting. But for the purpose of this, let's just use reset damage, and let's go confirm that that's working. All right, so let's go get damaged by our big boy over here. Good old reliable. I think he's still set to die in one hit. I might want to change that. Let's go to our secret room. We're kind of getting stuck. And let's see if our chest heals us now. And there we go. Our chest heals us. So now you can see we have some interactables that just act as things that can be damaged, and we also have an interactable that can heal. Now, if you take a look at the boxes, you might notice that they have different, parameters too. You can see they have a damageable script, and you can change how these things work. You could add your own parameters on death, for example. So, for example, if we wanted these to heal on death, we could add an input here, just like we did before, and we could come in here to Ellen, grab her, put her into here, and if we come into damageable, we could click on the reset damage. So these could also be a source of healing. So let's just go ahead and test that and see. Only that first one has it set up. Why not? This could be a way to kind of make them more interesting. We could also look for other options, if the game had currency inputs. I don't know if it does or not. So I've taken a damage. When I destroy this first one here, in theory it should heal, and you can see it just healed me. So we can actually do this on a lot of different objects if we want to. If we want to get rid of it though, we can select this and just minus to get rid of it. Okay, but that's going to give us the ability to add in some destructible objects and add some interactions. We did touch base on a couple other things too, like refreshing our nav mesh as well as adjusting our jump height. Okay, so be mindful, we can do all that. Okay. So let's give ourselves a bit of a challenge. Go ahead and do what I did here. Use the destructible crates to create some sort of a secret area, and then go ahead and place a health chest behind that secret area for your players. Okay? Before we move on, let's go ahead and organize things a little bit more. We have all these destructible objects, and we do need to figure out where we want to put these. It could be a good idea to nest these under level assets. So we did a level geo. We could create a new group down here, which you might have a hard time doing. I might need to expand this, but let's create empty, and we could make this interactable objects. And we could go ahead and nest these underneath here. So I have my destructible boxes, I have my health crates, let's bring those underneath here. But I did also add in these wall huge and these pillars. So maybe I want to put those under level geo and just kind of keep things nice and tidy so that way things are good. All right, so under interactable objects, let's put that under our level assets. So that way we have those all organized in a good spot. Okay, so be diligent in your organization. Don't get too rushed. Otherwise, this is going to get messy quick. And if you need to come back in here and adjust these, you can. So now that we have these destructible objects and working health crates, this makes the game feel more interactive. In the next video, we're going to continue adding gameplay elements. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to like and subscribe for the next video in the series. And comment with your ideas for cool level designs below and how you might have found interesting ways to use these interactable objects.